Okay, so my name's Mel. I am the advocacy chair along with Lauren Marie. She's not here, but will be here today. Um, and I am trying to pull up this document. Well, first I want to say that they've scheduled the advocacy focus on advocacy week is going to be February 17th of next year. So we'll have more reminders about that, but that just came out recently. And also, um, we have there is a workshop that we're trying to set up with that hasn't been announced yet, but we're still trying to do that. Just wait. So we'll announce that when that comes out as well. I'm going to put this in the chat. Um, sorry, I've got so many windows open. So the chat is here. So in leading up to legislative advocacy, what you could do to get ready for the session is make sure that you're signed up for their advocacy action calls. I forget what they're called, but I'm going to put that link in the chat. If you're not signed up for those, they let you sign up for them, but they're not active right now. And then I'll put a link in there too for oh God, I just started my software to check for worms and stuff. Let me get that out of there. So that link is in there in the chat now. And I'm also going to put in here. Where is it? Right here. Yes. I'm going to also drop in that. I thought I was. Yeah, there it is. And I'll drop in this. There is a folder. Sorry, I'm so out of it. I just raced home on the highway. It's crazy out there. A little bit overstimulated right now. So I also made a Google folder on Google Drive that I put in the chat that has documents in it. If you're interested in reading them, it's just documents that you can get from the legislature. I have hard copies too. So if you're somebody that likes to actually read them, if you reach out to me, I can work on getting you like a little packet of information that they offer through the legislative body. And I'll pull up the document. Can I share now, Donna? Yeah, okay. So let me pull up um, I don't know if I want to do that one. This one, I think. Yes, okay. So our priorities are, here we go. Okay, these are our priorities for membership. It's something that membership votes on. We can't do that tonight, but we'll go through them real quick to remind ourselves what our membership and families are focused on. This has been, of course, it's rolled over every year and reviewed. So it's a real good list of overarching things that we always have our ears to the ground for to help families that are experiencing things like this and to change systematically, hopefully. What does this say? This host, start my video.
It's up to you, Mel. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can start it. Yeah. There we go. Oh, start my video? Oh, yeah, I'm not going to start my video. No, sorry. Hold on. I've got too many screens because I'm like on my phone. It's a hot mess over here. So what was that? So how do I turn this off now? Hold on.
This is Yana. What would you like to turn up?
Well, I want to turn off my video, but I've got too many
It's
screens
not,
open.
you're not spotlighted. I spotlighted you, but then I realized you don't have your video on. So you
Okay, because I
want the
can see my
spotlight.
hands. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So you guys can see the document, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so inclusionary practices is something that we are, of course, it's a big chunk of it, and it's very essential. It's really coming up in Seattle public schools right now. Acceptance, so I'll start reading them. Acceptance of disability as part of everyday life. Implementation of inclusive practices, including universal design for learning, accessibility of instruction, learning environment, improving racial disability, and LGBTQ plus diversity of educator workforce. We didn't we tried to have, there were some bills about the diversity of educator workforce that failed last year that I hope get picked up again in this session. I don't know if it's going to be more focused on budget this year, and those kind of bills might fall by the wayside, but hopefully they won't. And then, of course, fully funding basic education and removing the 16%. Wait, is it at 16% right now? Oh, really? Okay. Student enrollments for special education funding cap to meet the true needs of students in Washington State. What was it at before, Yana?
So in previously it was 13.5. We moved the cap to 15, which was the biggest increase in the history of Washington State. And now it's at 16%. And the proposal initially was for 16.25, I believe.
Right, right.
And then there was some wrestle over it throughout the legislature, and then we came up with 16%, or they came up with 16%, which passed, and then we still need to remove the cap. We can't cap how many students with disabilities get their education funded. It's discrimination.
Absolutely.
And that's just not, so the only piece here is that we are trying to remove the 16% cap.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so that makes perfect sense. Sorry. I thought for some reason it was supposed to go the other way, but no. Okay, so update the state expectations for pre-service teachers to include special education required courses that incorporate a disability justice lens for all teachers. That is important for our kids to have allies and champions in the classroom, of course. Certified educators prepared to support students with disabilities as part of their pre-service and inclusion instruction on the social model of disability. Social model of disability is basically the theory that having a disability doesn't mean that you can't, it's not a medical model, it's more of a social model, and how having a disability you interact with the world instead of the medical aspect of your disability. You should be seen as a person, not a medical condition. Simplifying the safety net reimbursement process to school districts. There was a bill that passed, but it was chopped up. There were a lot of go back and forth between the committees. I think that's probably going to stay on. I don't know if that's going to be, I think actually that's part of the special education audit that is going to be taking effect and should be out any minute now. So that'll probably depend on that. Staff retention, including competitive and rewarding benefits. Of course, we need our para educators to be have living wages and all that. Smaller class sizes and caseloads for special education service providers to ensure quality of effectiveness of service. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So that is what we have for inclusionary practices. Is there any comment on that or anything that anybody sees they want to add or take out or elaborate or discuss?
This is Yana. Mel, sometimes it sounds like you're in a kind of a distance. I don't know if you
I'm
are.
in my basement. I probably have crappy
Mhm.
crappy reception.
Yeah, it goes in and out type of thing. So FYI.
Noticing, I'm noticing that too with you as well, Hanya. So it could just be the technology.
Well, this is Yana. Dustin, you're breaking up as well. So this is just such a fun evening.
I think it's the wind. It's just the weather.
Sorry. Okay, Mel, go ahead again. Let's see if we can get through this. I don't know what this check past bills.
Well, they did pass a bill that does start to simplify this safety net, but it's part of the special education audit that's coming up. So I'm expecting that audit to affect the bill that was just passed, because it was so chopped up between committees, that it ended up being a skeleton of the bill that it was, type of the situation. So hopefully they'll be able to make that a little bit more robust, and once they get feedback from people that are using it.
Okay, so
My
would that,
understanding.
okay, so would that be, this is Yana, so would that be for rulemaking then?
I think, yeah, for rulemaking, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what that means sometimes, the legislature comes up with a bill, or if there's a law that can be actually changed through a process called rulemaking. And that particular related agency, which could be Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction or another state agency, can then propose changes, collects public input, and then they make those changes through rulemaking as opposed to through the legislature.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you for elaborating on that.
Yeah.
I did not know all that. So then so that's the inclusionary. Does anybody
Any questions about this? I think Mel, you went out a little, so I'm gonna try to help.
maybe I should change my phone?
I will also say, this is Yana, that we had pretty extensive, these legislative priorities were in. Wow. Okay, these legislative priorities were put in place through a lot of input and going back and forth, and a lot of different committee meetings and board discussions, etc. in 2022, I think. And ever since, we've been just reviewing them and amending them. And so there was previously a lot of wordsmithing. There were a couple pieces that were removed as we accomplished things. This is basically our wish list. And as we accomplish things, we hope to remove advocacy, or those priorities from this list. So I know it's a long list. Mel, can you try again? Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so for addressing the student mental health crisis, we have trauma-informed practices. This is around the disciplinary practices and that disproportionately impact BIPOC and disabled students. As we know, we hurt our youngest and our most vulnerable students, unfortunately, in the public school system. So we want to try and protect them as much as we can. Access to mental health services for students with disabilities and their families, providing wraparound supports. And that's basically so that families can go in and, get help with food or get help with medical or mental health, more like a hub of schools, I think wasn't that what we're saying? Like to have health hubs, Yana, here?
So basically we need to get students the need they require, so that we don't have and wrap around if a student needs not something that's just related to learning, like academics, but if they need mental health counseling or whatever other support there can be that might not be currently in the school available, that is what they need, then they need to get it, right? So wrap around, just kind of what it says is it wraps around them so that all the services that they need to succeed and learn are available to them.
Okay, and then we have diversifying behavioral health workforce in schools around race, disability, and LGBTQ status. And end isolation and mechanical restraint in Washington schools, and assist families with access to resources. I think isn't that kind of like the wraparound support up there? Can we take that one out?
Well, I think the diversifying behavioral health workforce in schools around race, disability, is that what you mean? That should actually, it's different. What we need is
No, I mean the bottom one, assist families with access to resources.
Yeah, I guess that could be proposed. Yeah.
Okay.
Wraparound support and resources. We could add resources to the previous bullet point, and because this one
Alright.
is specific to health, mental health services, then you
Okay.
would have to say access to resources in that. You can say it in the same bullet point.
Okay. Um,
And make sure that you use like a different color font.
yeah, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Okay, any comments or questions?
Okay. Our next item is,
Mel, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
This is Yana. Can you leave it there and strike through that instead of delete it? And I can do that too. Sorry. You go ahead and yeah,
okay.
go ahead. Yep. And I'll do it.
Okay, and appropriate and timely identification of students with disabilities. This is focus on BIPOC, twice exceptional, highly mobile, low income, multilingual students, and particularly those affected by the intersection of two or more factors. Racial and gender analysis of special education programs to ensure that groups are not being over or under identified for specific support needs. Quality independent educational evaluations to avoid conflict of interest and bias. And we can have discussion on that, or we can move on to the next, whichever everybody wants to do.
This is Yana. If anybody has a question, feel free to unmute and ask.
Hi, this is Dustin. This question might be too into the weeds of like legislation, but I was just wondering with that last point about not over or under identifying students, but with the cap on special education, I was just curious about like if there were concerns that if we reduce the cap on special education, that kids would be over identified or funding or things like that. I just didn't know if those were related.
Yes. So we're
Yeah,
not
they're definitely
removing the cap. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely they're related for sure. Yeah, I think that they're, I mean, in my opinion, they're under, of course, identified to meet budgetary,
Mhm.
restraints. And that's why we're trying to remove the cap. And they seemed pretty open to it last year. I'm amazed that we got as much as we did last year, but last year there was a promise that it would be more this year, our next budgeting, if I remember correctly. It wasn't like they don't think they're done, like they don't, and of course they're not done. So that's what we're going to be showing up and reminding them what they said last year about that.
So this is Yana. Dustin, what also happens is some students, especially BIPOC students, tend to be misidentified or over-identified as needing special education services. And what happens is that they get put into a segregated classroom. A lot of our social emotional learning classrooms in Seattle have students, Black and brown students that really shouldn't be there. And there's it's just the racism in the system exhibiting itself. And then there's also under identification of students who might need some learning supports, but because their family might not know how to advocate, might not have the ability to advocate, we're not using, meaning the system isn't using sound evaluation tools that are culturally responsive. They might be not get qualified for special education services that they might need. So there's both, and the data is there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of ableism and racism in the system. So we are trying to advocate for that to be eliminated. Does that answer your question? Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right, Mel, go ahead.
Okay. equitable access to education and resources for all students with disabilities to ensure safe and inclusive school environment. And I'm wondering why shouldn't this be up inclusionary? I don't know why those are separate yet. Let me read them. I think that was something I wanted to talk about to see if we can make that as part of inclusionary practices, but I'll read them through and we can decide. Accessibility, including assistive technology, auxiliary aids and services, ASL interpreters, classes, curriculum tools, quiet sensory rooms, and smaller class sizes are all.
I'm so sorry, Mel. This is the interpreter. I'm just going to ask you to slow down a beat. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. So those are all wonderful things that our students would appreciate. High expectations and quality instruction, meaningful and effective preparation of students for life after high school, higher education, and or career. Recruitment and representation of a diverse and effective workforce of educators, therapists, nurses, including those with disabilities, BIPOC and LGBTQIA+. I think we might have that up top, but I'll look at that in a second. Equitable access to preparation as certificate programs, quality literacy training.
Well, hold on a second, Mel, because it wasn't visible, so audible, so the interpreters couldn't interpret. Can you say it one more time?
The last one I just read.
Yes.
Equitable access to preparation and certificate programs. Quality literacy training, science of reading. Improve quality of continued education for staff. Access to the learning spaces and safety plans and protocols for all people with disabilities who use those spaces. Healthy food choices and transportation. Okay, open it up for any questions. You can go ahead and unmute and just speak if you have anything to add or say or ask. Okay, so I will move down to, all right, I think this is our last one.
Sorry, this is Dustin. I just had, in response to the, so this list of items, so like, for example, curriculum, like I can see how, like for kids who access information differently, like, as a, a teacher for students with moderate severe disabilities, oftentimes they might need a different curriculum in order to access the Common Core. Is that what this is speaking to, I guess, in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about it. If you think that there's something that's lacking or that we can develop or combine or.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is all wonderful stuff. I think the only thing that might be interesting to add, like with the healthy food choices, like just trying to think about students, like some of the students I work with, and just like what that might mean. And so that might just kind of like, because some students have, are very, very picky eaters or like need to eat specific things. And so being able to access like nutritious foods that are more like, like an IEP might, tailor their curriculum. I don't know if that's something that could work with the diet as well, but something to think about in just nutrition in general for some of our students, because it can be very tricky.
I bet it can. I know it can. My kid is so particular with textures. It's crazy. He's getting better, but it's a work in progress. So we could make a note on it, and then next committee meeting we could like hammer that out and see if we can add something to put. Thank you. Put that in there. Yay, my dinner. Okay. So we'll put in here the choices. Discussion regarding
accessible, but I think this is also, it kind of is a nitty gritty a little bit, but we can talk about it. I think it's you know, there's, of course, we want them to have healthy choices, and if it's not accessible, then that's not inclusive environment, right? So,
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
yeah. That's what I think whoever put that, you know, suggested that, that was their reasoning, but I'm open to, you know, where we can talk, yeah, we can talk
Okay.
about.
Okay, so our last one is increasing equitable family engagement. Family education on how to support their students at home and in the community. Access to advocacy support for their students' rights, such as educational advocate services. Accountability and accurate record keeping, including the right for parents to record meetings about their students to ensure transparent decisions. Expand the ratio of family engagement coordinators in middle and high schools. Reduce barriers for caregivers to participation in work groups, committees, and other engagement opportunities. To increase representation that is reflective of the community. And fund family engagement professionals. Sorry, fund family engagement, fund family engagement professional learning and continuing education for all educators. And that would conclude our wish list.
Yeah, thank you, Mal. I think there was one thing, there's also around the accountability and accurate record keeping, including the right to parent to record meetings about their students and ensure transparent decisions. The recording meetings is also an accessibility issue, so that families, you know, parents or guardians who have disability are able to record and access that meeting and the information that's being communicated. And so that's one other.
I'm hoping that the burden of proof changing might kind of soften their stand on that. Since
Right.
it switched back to them, I'm hoping that they
So
won't be so against that now.
I agree. This is Yana. So we, Senator Trudeau, who was the prime sponsor of the bill that changed the burden of proof for due process from parents if they file to school districts in most cases, except if parents want to recover cost of private placement. That's a different story. They still have the burden of proof that the student lost access to free, appropriate public education. The bill actually was a single item bill and sailed through legislature and passed and has been in effect as a law since June 6th. So I remember we had, I was in one of the meetings that Senator Trudeau talked about it, and I said, well, could we just add, before the bill passed, could we just add recording of meetings to it? And she said, you know, let's come back with that next year because this bill is currently passing. Let's pass it and let's revisit the next piece in the next session so that it's not complicated, because what sometimes happens is that when a bill gets too complicated, like a couple of years ago, Representative Paulette's bill got added lots of things in it, 1305, House Bill 1305, that everybody started calling the kitchen sink. Then, you know, we kind of, sometimes it's easier to pass a bill if it's only about single item, single topic. So I thought that's fair. So let's try to get on that this next legislative session.
Yeah, and that's something that I'd like to really, so as you guys can see, this is a really extensive list, and I love that it catches, I think it's a good you know, it's a wide panoramic view of everything that we're up against. And I'm not saying that we speak for everything here, but it's good net. So last year, but however, with this kind of a list, as a chair and leading a committee, I think it might help if we kind of pick like 4 or 5 things that we want to really like hone in on and really focus like laser on, like like the bills that we want to try and get panels together for testifiers, or join like a coalition of other advocates, join somebody else's panel if we can, type of a thing would help with guiding the committee a little bit, because all these things can show up on a lot of different bills, and then it just gets to be too much for, for a dozen people to handle. But that's something that we will come to membership with when that happens, and that can always be redirected through general membership meetings. When we come, once the session is happening, we'll be reporting regularly to membership and talking about that and asking where we want to go. So yeah.
Thank you, Mel. This is
Yep.
Yana. So there's a lot. And just like Washington State PTA has top 5 priorities, I know that Mel and her co-chair Laura Murray have floated the idea of making some priorities out of those resolutions, right? We can have top 5, top 2, top whatever. So remember the Legislative Advocacy Committee meeting is on December 4th at noon. It is now on our calendar, and so join us. Yeah, I would say let's move on to Catherine and treasurer report if we can, while we have internet connection and electricity.
Thank you. Is
Catherine,
it
do you want me to share? Do you want be able to share?
either way is fine. I'm happy to share.
Okay, I'm gonna make you co-host and go ahead.
All right. Hi, my name is Catherine Muth. I am the treasurer for this fiscal year. I apologize. I am not always the best about announcing who I am. I'm trying to be better. But this year we are moving along against our budget. We have raised about half of our membership revenue to date. So if you haven't joined, please do. So we're moving along against that number. We've recognized some donations from members, as well as other donations which are coming from Benevity and matching gift funds. So that has brought us to net revenue on that line item of $138. We've recognized some meeting expenses for coffee that happened at our meeting at the library earlier this month. And we've also recognized some administrative fees for the website, our ongoing Zoom subscription, and interpretation fees. Year to date, we have brought in, we have netted $355 of a loss, which is in line with what we had anticipated for the year. So it's not anything of concern. We started the month with $17,772 and ended the month with $17,285 split between our checking account and our PayPal account. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
This is Yana. Can I just ask you real quick, when you say year to date, is it a fiscal year or calendar year?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. It is for the fiscal year, so it would be July 1st through October 31st of 2024.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, then I will give the time back to Yana.
This is Yana. Thank you, Catherine. I have a just one thing that I want to say is that thank you to everyone who voted for us to get the helping people grant from BECU. We have not heard back. It was going on for I think 11 days in October, but we will find out on December 5th whether we got the higher level award. And we are awarded $15,000 just for making it into the final choices, 18 choices there were, but we will find out on December 5th at an event whether that BECU organizes, which award we get and if we won the higher level award. There's different ones. Some are chosen by the public, some are by BECU members, etc. So, and some I think by the previous winners. So keep your fingers crossed that they are counting well and we win and we can have more interpretation services and more events because it's important to us to make sure that we are not making the equity gap even wider, and we provide the information that we provide to all families that need them. Okay, so it is 8:13, and since we don't have a quorum and can't vote on standing rule amendments or legislative advocacy priorities, I suggest that we end the PTA business part of the meeting, and we can just kind of open it up to discussion. Any other suggestions?
I think that's a good idea. This is Mel.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording so that people feel free to unmute and participate and just kind of share. So
Then I'll turn my camera on.